And we are back with another Trabant video. So the car hasn't been forgotten, it was just at the paint shop for a pretty long time. And now it's back and I'm assembling it and I want to give you a quick update. So I quickly wanted to show you a couple of things. I just cleaned up the engine a little bit and fixed a couple of things. I changed the cylinder head gaskets, for example. And one thing you can see here now that it's relatively clean. There's number one, there's number two. So the way how they counted the cylinders on a Trabant is the other way around. Usually today we would say this is one, this is two. And also you can see here's the flywheel and the clutch. And what's really interesting is what we can see here now. So that is the engine bay of a Trabant without engine. And we have to remember that that is a design from the mid-1950s. And we can see that for the very first time they put the gearbox next to the engine. So the engine would be here, that is the gearbox, and the differential is behind it. So which means that you can see the front axle is pretty much where the leaf spring is, and the gearbox is in front of it. So a transversal layout, engine on the right hand side of the car, and the gearbox on the left hand side of the car, and that's the arrangement that was adapted later on by pretty much everybody. Especially VW, for example, and we have this arrangement until today in all the bigger cars. The Mini had the gearbox underneath, others still had a motorcycle gearbox behind the engine. That was the first time they put the engine at the side and the gearbox at the side, the differential behind it. So first of all, I put everything on that is needed for the engine to run. And it's pretty interesting if you see the car now without the front mask. So you can see that actually all the components are pretty far forward. So you have the carburetor here and the air intake. This is the exhaust primary. This is the fan for the cooling. And everything is pretty far forward. It's just behind the front of the car. There is actually no crash structure. So there is nothing whatsoever. Remember that this is a 1950s design. But even my 1930s F9 has a longitudinal structure there, some longitudinal beams, like a ladder frame. But the Trabant has that, all of this stuff not. So you're looking at an engine bay with completely no crash structure at all. So I put the engine back inside, the exhaust primaries are here. There is an air path from here, so from the fan, along the exhaust primaries, which is heating up the air and then later on goes to the interior. We have a new battery inside. We made the fuel tank pretty, also the ignition and all the wiring loom around. And my philosophy is that everything that goes on the car now needs to be pretty. So it needs to be new or renewed, or like made pretty. So yeah, we have everything on here that is needed now. And I'm continuing in the interior. Pretty interesting about this engine bay is also that it looks pretty simple and everything is just there and you can reach things pretty easily, you might think. So for example, the carburetor is just here if you want to change something, or ignition is there, and steering and everything is very easy to reach. But in fact, so we should remember how this car was designed. If you want to know more about this, check out my other Trabant videos where I explain the history and the background of this design in depth. This Trabant 601 was just like illegal development at the time. So they just wanted to make a quick facelift and just quickly made some changes. And in the end, they ended up producing the car for more than 30 years. So everything had a good idea at first, but then it was changed to something very quickly that wasn't completely thought through, or just quickly had to work, and then they just built it much longer than they thought they would. So for example, if you want to change the settings at the carburetor, it's right in front of you. It's yeah, very easy to reach with your fingers, but if you want to use any tools to change any setting here, there's always the exhaust primaries in the way. So, and this goes through the whole car, so everything is always right in front of you. It's just not very easy to reach because you can't reach it with the tool, or it's always something in the way. So the design itself is not amazingly thought through. It used to be like that in the very first version, but since they updated the whole stuff, yeah, it became trickier. But it is what it is, and it's still a very nice car to work at because it's so simple, but it's still a fully functional car with all the functions that a modern car has. And yeah, really nice step if you started with motorcycles, for example, and this is your first car, you really understand how everything works, and it's a good basis if you work on further cars. So let's have a look at the interior. I'm currently working on reconnecting the wiring loom. And yeah, you can see here, there's not much wiring loom left, so all the stuff is pretty straightforward. I used to have a pretty annoying rattle noise, such a metal noise when I was driving, and I could never really figure out where it was coming from, but it came from the dashboard. But it's a very simple car, so it can't be very far away from you, but I just couldn't figure it out. And actually it's this vent here, so that is the vent that is blowing warm air to the windscreen, if there is a windscreen. And this was probably shaking while driving and was somehow making this noise. So it's super annoying while driving, super loud. So I'm gonna isolate that properly and put it back. I was also looking for a pretty long time where I can fix the stopcock extension. So if you look here, here is our stopcock for the fuel. This is where we fix the mechanism. I was always looking for this holder, I couldn't remember where it was, but actually it was just connected to this air vent. So I didn't really remember that, but now it's there and it's great. So that is actually a pretty nicely built part. It only holds with a clamp on each side. You can see it here. So there are 2 clamps either side. You can also see the fixings here. You can see these marks. And there's only a single screw underneath, which I didn't fully fix right now because I'm still working on this part. And that's it. So it's pretty easy to install it, but of course it's then not very nice if it's shaking while driving, so we will do it properly now. So the next step for the Trabi project are that I want to reconnect the whole wiring loom inside, refit the exhaust, and then it would be the first time to start the car. And everything else is just like decoration, so we put the windows in, we put the lights on and all of that. But I want to be able to drive this car as quickly as possible. And if we are done with the basics, I need to go to the German TÜV because TÜV is already overdue now, and just renew that. And after that I will fully finish the car with the full interior and everything. Yeah, so I hope you liked this little update video. So the Trabi is coming back on the channel, and see you soon.